Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and the February 2023 edition of Archaeology News, where I, Rachel, an archaeologist, cover the latest interesting things going on in the world of archaeology. Today I'm going to be covering recent discoveries and current events for the month of February. All the links to further details on the stories mentioned here today will be in the description below if you would like more info. Before we begin, please help support my channel by subscribing and hit the like button to help me out with the algorithm. Okay, let's dig in. We have 7 stories today in our top discoveries segment. I'll be presenting them in chronological order, going from the earliest to most recent, starting with 15,000-year-old projectile points and going up until Henry VIII of England. For our first story today, archaeologists from Oregon State University, digging in Idaho, have uncovered projectile points thousands of years older than any previously found in the Americas. They have found 13 full and fragmented projectile points ranging from 0.5 to 2 inches long and razor sharp. The points have been carbon dated to approximately 15,700 years ago. They predate Clovis fluted points by about 3,000 years and previously found points at the Cooper's Ferry site in Idaho by 2,300 years. Next up, we're heading to Iraq, where archaeologists have unearthed the remains of a 4,500-year-old Sumerian temple dedicated to the thunder god Ningirsu, one of the most important gods of the Sumerian pantheon. The temple was built out of mud brick and was the centerpiece of the ancient city of Girsu, a bustling cultural center at the heart of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians are probably the oldest civilization in the world and the first to establish religion and a code of law. Now, more than a century since the site was last excavated, a new team has unearthed the temple. They used remote sensing techniques to reveal features of the site buried under sand and other deposits. They also created digital elevation models to understand how the landscape has changed since the excavations in the 19th century. Over 5 field seasons, they have uncovered a large area of the ancient sanctuary, including the inner sanctum, a ceremonial square, an interior wall which featured a gate, and were also able to identify and excavate part of the enclosure wall of the religious complex, including a monumental gate. Now we head to Anatolia and the Hittites. Around 1200 BCE, an event known as the Bronze Age collapse caused a significant setback for human civilization as several key empires declined or collapsed. One of the mightiest to perish was the Hittite Empire, which was based in modern Turkey and included parts of Syria and Iraq. The cause of this collapse has been long speculated, and now new research has given insight into the fall of the Hittites. Researchers examined long-lived juniper trees that grew in the region at the time and eventually were harvested to build a wooden structure southwest of Ankara around 748 BCE. Tree ring and isotope analysis has revealed a gradual shift to drier conditions as well as 3 straight years of severe drought from 1198 to 1196 BCE, coinciding with the known timing of the empire's dissolution. This change in climate probably caused crop failures, famine, and political societal disintegration. What makes the discovery particularly interesting is the lessons that we can learn from it. The climate changes that are likely to occur for us in modern day in the next century will be much more severe than those the Hittites experienced, and begs the question of will we be able to handle it differently. Heading next to China, archaeologists working at the site of Yuyang city ruins in Xi'an have discovered one of the world's oldest flush toilets. Classified as a luxury item, it was probably used by high-status elites during the Warring States period from 475 to 221 BCE. Unlike our modern versions, it would not flush automatically. Servants poured water into the bowl after each use. The team plans to use this discovery to learn more about the people who use the toilet and their diet, including testing for fecal matter and looking for the toilet's upper half to establish if it was intended to be used while sitting or standing. Next up, during a teaching excavation, Frankfurt's Goethe University archaeologists have discovered 2 previously unknown Roman military camps, one of which contained well-preserved sharpened wooden stakes used to deter attacks from enemies in the 1st century CE. References to this type of defenses by Julius Caesar have been found in literature, but previously no physical trace of them had been found. Experts think the Roman military had a presence at this site specifically because of their investment in the lucrative silver mining operation there, which would have needed defense against sudden raids. The good preservation of the spikes can be accredited to the damp soil of the area, providing the ideal conditions for them to survive. Notably, the spiked wooden defense structure was discovered on the second last day of the team's excavations, along with a coin minted in 43 CE. The spikes have been removed and preserved at a museum in Mainz. A publication on the discovery is being written, and the archaeologist who led the dig, Friedrich Auth, will be recounting his discovery at science slams in Heidelberg, Bonn, and Mannheim in March. If you'd like to check out these events, I've put the link to them down in the description below. More Roman discoveries in our next story. Professional archaeologists excavating a Roman bathhouse near Hadrian's Wall in Carlisle, England, have discovered a stockpile of 2,000-year-old glittering gemstones clogging a drain. The 34 engraved semi-precious stones, known as intaglios, likely dropped out of ring settings worn by bathers who took to the waters sometime during the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE. The gems would have been set with a vegetable glue, and in the hot and sweaty bathhouse, they, and sometimes the entire ring itself, fell and got washed down the drain. The bathhouse was adjacent to the most important fort on Hadrian's Wall, which held an elite cavalry unit and had links to the imperial court. It is noteworthy that very few intaglios have an obvious military connection as you might expect from a garrison, but include deities such as Fortuna, Bonus Eventus, Apollo, and Ceres. Excavation of the site will continue next year, but the evidence recovered so far suggests that the bathhouse complex was monumental and opulent. For our last story today, we have gold, that rare and momentous thing that always catches the headlines. Cafe owner Charlie Clark was metal detecting in a field in Warwickshire, England, when he discovered a huge gold and enamel early Tudor pendant and chain bearing the initials and symbols of Henry VIII and his first wife, Katherine of Aragon. The heart-shaped pendant, attached to a chain of 75 links and made of 300 grams of 24-karat gold, is decorated with a bush bearing the Tudor rose and a pomegranate, Katherine's symbol. On the reverse are the initials H and K. Ribbon motifs carry the legend TOVS and IORS, which is an early English franglais pun on the French word toujours and all yours. We don't know who the pendant belonged to, but it is likely that it was either commissioned by or somehow related to a noble or high-ranking courtier. It's also possible it was made to be worn or given as a prize at a major tournament. Nothing else remotely like it has survived from the period, and is the most remarkable UK Renaissance find in over 25 years. That's it for our top discoveries for this month. Now we're going to move on to current news and events. Next, we travel back to Turkey, where on February 6, 2023, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck southern and central Turkey and northern and western Syria. It was closely followed by a 7.7 magnitude earthquake a few hours later. There was widespread damage, and at the time that I wrote this video, there had been over 53,000 confirmed fatalities. As the countries continue to search for survivors and look to rebuild, concerns are also growing for some of the region's most cherished historical sites. UNESCO has said it was carrying out a survey of the affected areas and discovered many had either been damaged or collapsed completely. In Syria, the ancient city of Aleppo has been badly affected. Its famous citadel, a World Heritage Site, was damaged, the western tower of the old city wall has collapsed, and several buildings in the ancient marketplaces have been weakened. In Turkey, several buildings in Diyarbakir have collapsed, raising fears for the Diyarbakir fortress and the Hevsel Gardens cultural landscape, another World Heritage Site. UNESCO has also expressed concern for the sites like Göbekli Tepe in the Anatolian mountains, Nemrut Dağ, a temple tomb in southeastern Turkey, and the 30-meter tall Arslan Tepe mound near the eastern city of Malatya, which was inhabited from the 6th millennium BCE to the medieval times. One of the first major sites to show signs of damage was the imposing castle in the center of the city of Gaziantep in southeastern Turkey, not far from the epicenter of the first earthquake. The castle, which sits on a site that can be traced back to the ancient Hittite Empire, had been left partially in ruins. Antakya, ancient Antioch, is one of the cities left most devastated. Built in 300 BCE by one of the generals of Alexander the Great, it was one of the biggest cities in the Greco-Roman world. Saints Peter and Paul are said to have founded one of the oldest Christian communities here, and it's where the word Christian first came into use. Turkey's rich Islamic architecture has also suffered drastically from the quakes, including the Yemi Kami, or New Mosque, in Malatya, which partially collapsed in the tremors on Monday, its great domes lying in ruin. If you would like to donate to support those working on the ground helping people to recover from this tragedy, I've linked the Syrian American Medical Society Foundation and UNICEF charities in the description of this video. Our last news story for today brings us back to the UK, where a rise in the number of detectorists unearthing historical artifacts has prompted an effort to broaden the legal definition of treasure to help museums to acquire important items. The wording of the 1996 Treasure Act has led to some items being lost into private ownership rather than public display in museums. Under the current definition, an item is treasure if it is at least 300 years old and made at least in part of precious metals such as gold or silver, or as part of a hoard. The proposed amendment will cover exceptional finds of at least 200 years old, regardless of the type of metal they are made of. If a coroner assesses an artifact as meeting the legal definition of treasure, it can be acquired by a museum rather than sold to the highest bidder. This change in the law was prompted by an increase in the number of people becoming metal detectorists. As most of the finds of treasure are by detectorists, more objects are being discovered, and some of them that don't currently meet the treasure definition are at risk of being lost to the public, and a heritage minister wants to save them for museums. An example of this is the Crosby Garrett Roman cavalry helmet discovered near Penrith in Cumbria, which was sold to a private bidder as it did not meet the definition of treasure. That's everything for the February edition of Archaeology News. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any stories you think should be featured on next month's show, feel free to send them to me via DM on Instagram. While you're over there, feel free to also give me a follow. I've been doing lots of experimental Instagram reels about things that have happened on this day in history, and I have lots of other archaeology content there for you to view. Also, if you've come all the way to the end of this video, great job. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the bell button so you get notified whenever I put out new videos. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.